We show you an online parliamentary petition against a knee-jerk reaction of the Minns Labor government in New South Wales and explain why our shooting industry must ensure that we never see this happen again. First of all, thank you for your support and the donations. They're greatly appreciated because they help us boost our videos through social media to reach more and more shooters. And you can see the result of that in the number of views that our YouTube videos have had. So once again, thank you for that. Now, once we know more about the legislation, if it goes through, then we'll be running a fundraiser specifically for the New South Wales state election in a year and a half's time. But we can't and won't do that until we see what happens over the next few days. If anything, my aim is to build up enough money to make the New South Wales state election as painful for Labor and the Liberals, if need be, as possible. But again, we'll need to wait and see what happens first. Now, John Ruddock is the Libertarian member in the Upper House of New South Wales Parliament, and he has launched an online petition, and I will show that to you now. This is online and available to be signed by people who live in New South Wales. So the link to this is in the description to this video. Now, all you need to do is to put your name and address, your contact information, and that's pretty much it. You do need to tick if you are a resident of New South Wales. The petition is to request Parliament delay the rushed reforms proposed by Premier Minns to allow time to assess their impact and develop effective laws that would genuinely reduce the risk of a terrorist attack like the one seen in Bondi. And I thought it would be useful just to briefly recap the videos that we put out to date because they tell the whole story. Last week, we gave a heads up after the Minns government floated changes to the gun laws. Now, remember that the Bondi event was only about a week ago. So you can see the video that we produced then at the top of the screen in that little tab. Then there was the one that we put out that showed the impact that the new laws would have and the cost that this would impose on any party that supports restrictive gun laws. And we point back to the 1988 defeat of the Unsworth Labor government who tried to move tough new gun laws. They lost 10% of the vote and as a result, they lost government. And again, the tag to that video is at the top of the screen. Our most recent video contains the detail of what is in the legislation that will be tabled this week, and also the need for Labor MPs to look at crossing the floor if they want to keep their jobs, and a tag to that video is at the top of the screen. Now, I want you to know, if you're in New South Wales, you are not alone on this. The national reaction to the gun laws has been quite significant, and the good thing is that not all states are supporting this. Now, the states that have not really said anything about this so far are South Australia and Victoria. There are different dynamics in this state, but one thing that they have in common is they're both going to elections in the next year, South Australia in March and Victoria in November. So I think they're playing it smart by not buying into the game that Minns has started. Now, I'm going to point to some other coverage which has come up in the media, so you can see what the other states are saying. We saw this one previously where Dave Christopherly, who's the Queensland Premier, has basically refused to bring in the gun reforms. And then we had a bit of, basically a reaction from Albanese saying that the Queensland position is the weakest link in the plan, but of course the plan is not needed. Then we see the reaction from the federal nationals, which was encouraging. Of course, the Commonwealth government doesn't have jurisdiction over firearm laws except at the border and on Commonwealth property. But certainly, given their stance in 96, it was encouraging to see that the federal nationals basically are opposed to it. And of course, I'll just talk briefly about Dan Repiccioli. Now, Dan Repiccioli is a federal Labor MP, so he's on the side, at least party-wise, of the Minns government, except that he is not on side with what is proposed. Repiccioli, of course, you might know, is an international pistol shooter, represented Australia at the Olympics and Commonwealth Games. So he has basically dug his heels in and said that he does not support changes that unfairly target responsible law-abiding firearm owners. and basically says that it is not the answer. That, of course, is at odds with what Anthony Albanese is pushing, because he wants to support his New South Wales colleague. Dan Rapachol is breaking ranks on that. So good on you, Dan. I really appreciate that. Then we look at Northern Territory. Now, bear in mind, you've got the country Liberal Party that is in power there, and their deputy, the deputy chief minister, is an avid shooter. So it's and of course the nature of life in Northern Territory is that they weren't keen to follow suit. And they haven't. Basically, what they're saying is that they're happy to participate in work that's relating to reforms that might be needed in relation to anti-Semitism and hate and violence, etc. And options to strengthen gun laws, but they're basically saying they're not going to blindly follow approaches designed for other jurisdictions, which you can see down the bottom there. And the second part of that statement, which I have got right here, that they're saying the Northern Territory says they don't have the same challenges as other parts of the nation, and they make no apologies for fighting for Territorians in the national debate. So what that means is that you have most states basically not wanting to get involved in this. And then we've got the position of Tasmania. Now, they haven't really put out a lot of stuff in it, but they have spoken to the media. So I'm going to show you an article which we found where it's clear that Tasmania does not want to limit guns for hunters. So that's so good on you, Jeremy Rockcliffe, because he's the premier in Tasmania, which of course is a minority government. But however, they're curiously talking about renegotiating the National Firearms Agreement to adapt it to current security threats. Now, not quite clear what they mean by that, whether they're saying that we're not going to let people who've got some sort of terrorism link or background to have a firearms license, or whether they're going to push a button when there's something and then they crack down on everybody. I don't know what it means. They haven't actually said. There's a couple of other very curious things in this article, including the discussion about the relevant minister in Tasmania, a guy called Felix Ellis, announcing amendments to the Firearms Act to ban firearm licenses going to members of outlaw motorcycle gangs. Okay, it would be good if they did that. They also talk about, you're going to like this one, making a criminal offence. I'll just pull this up so you can see it. Making a criminal offence to carry a toy firearm with criminal intent. Your eyes don't deceive you. That's what they actually said. So anyway, that's the reaction from around the nation. And look, there'll probably be a bit more in the next few days, but I imagine that most states just want to stay quiet on this because they really don't want to start a fight with the shooting community, which is exactly what's happened in New South Wales. And of course, everybody's seeing exactly how that's panning out. Now, one of the things that disturbs me to quite a degree is the fact that major shooting organisations and businesses don't really seem to want to venture too much into this sort of space. My concern is that this is not the first attack that we've had on shooters. It's not going to be the last. We've seen significant changes out of Western Australia. We've seen what's happening now in New South Wales, and it is only a matter of time before the next one happens because the anti-gun lobby is getting bigger, it's getting more powerful, and they're starting to have an impact. And if it's New South Wales today, it'll be somewhere else, tomorrow. We need to not only stop that as an industry, but we need to unwind that and fight hard to get it back. It can be done. Now, we held, as in Politics Reloaded, we convened with the assistance of others, a national gun conference in 2024 that involved major shooting organisations who were on the same page in terms of what the challenges were. And there were also some current and former members of Parliament, and quite a number of you might remember seeing that. It was a really good discussion, and it also led to some actions that we could take forward in the future. Now, Unfortunately, it didn't continue because of some infighting that occurred, unrelated to this, but some infighting that occurred within some of those organisations, and in particular coming out of Western Australia, where one of the main protagonists there did not want their national organisation to share the stage with others. Now, the individuals who were involved, who participated, they did see the value of what was coming out of the conference, but it wasn't supported by others who did not want to share the stage. They were just indignant on it. Now, I would suggest that, having seen what's happened in New South Wales, now they should understand why it's important to have a national forum. Doing this will enable us to more quickly and cohesively respond to situations like this, and to keep shooters informed and connected to what they can do. Now, to me, we never, ever want to be caught by surprise again. Otherwise, we're just going to we'll be sitting ducks, being picked off one by one. Plus, we've got work to do to undo what's happened in Western Australia and New South Wales, and it's not an impossible task. If we can develop a better approach to our state and federal elections, then we can achieve a lot of that. As I said, the anti-gun lobby has shown that it's well organised, it's growing, and it's going to get harder and harder for us to fend that off, and that's why we need to stop it. So if you run a shooting organisation that shares that vision, just let me know. So that's it for now, and thank you for your support.